Welcome. Today we would understand the concept of industry from a very different perspective. So when we talk about any industrial system, let's understand how it primarily works. Now, I say there is a unit. This unit does a manufacturing. Manufacturing implies simply to make something. Now, when this unit is making something, what all it would require? It would require input. In which form this input would be required? This input would be either physical input or human input. Human input can again be as labor, but along with this human input, there would be also an aspect of economic input, and this economic input would be in the form of capital. So you have labor that is required, you have capital that is required, along with that the physical raw material or the physical input, what we say, is required. Now this input goes into the process. The process would involve primary stage, secondary stage of reforming, and finally there would be an output. Whenever you have input, you have cost associated with it. So there would be expenditure that you would have to do. When you are processing something, you are trying to store or make something, and finally with the output, what is there is the profit or loss, whatever is incurred to the industry. Now this output could be categorized into three forms. This output could be a general output that is supplied as a finished product. The next is a byproduct. Byproduct means it's not the actual product that is released from the industrial production, but a kind of leftover from the main product. And then you have the waste product, and this waste product is not useful and this needs to be disposed. Rather, the industry would have to bear the charges for disposing this. So those are the outputs that we understand. With this framework, we can say any kind of industry that we talk about could be a heavy industry or a light industry. Heavy industry, a good example could be iron and steel industry. Tisco in Jamshedpur is a very good example, which is under a private undertaking. However, on the other hand, you would have a light industry. Light industries are usually, let's say, computer assembly industry, where the parts are not that bulky to transport and it's relatively less, the cost is less. So that's how you can understand the cost beared for transportation would be less, or there would be less effort as it is less bulky. The next is industrial processing and industrial assembly. Now note, these two are very different terms. A simple question could be differentiate industrial processing and industrial assembly. So make sure you are not confused. When we say processing, you are directly using the raw material. So whatever is coming into the industry is being directly utilized, and that's what is processing. So let's say iron and steel industry would use iron, would use coal, would use limestone, and usually these processing industries are located in proximity or very close to the source of raw material. On the other hand, you have assembly industries. Assembly industries have a only function of putting the parts together and assembling the unit. For example, a car assembly unit, so all the components of the car are brought together and you would have the final model of the car that would be ready. Now these assembly units are usually footloose industries because they need not to be very close to the source of raw material, and it ultimately is just an assembly of the components. So let's say for a computer industry, you have the assembly of the components, and therefore it's a kind of footloose industry. It can be located anywhere. So that's a very primary difference between a processing industry and an assembly industry. The next important term that comes is a high technology industry. Now high technology industry, we can say, develops in silicon chips, robotics, aerospace, technically advanced countries usually have focus on software R&D. So these high technology industries are primarily located close to university areas where you can get good research and development opportunities. Again, a good example was 1960s. You have the Silicon Valley. Silicon Valley lies to the south of California, close to Santa Barbara, and this is the region where you have the Silicon Valley, or what we say the high-tech industries of America that are located. Similarly, in UK it is the Cambridge Science Park. In India it's Bangalore, now Cyberabad, close to Hyderabad. So those are some of the major areas. Similarly, if we talk about examples from across the globe, the idea is all developed countries and all newly industrialized countries, what we call as NICs, the newly industrialized countries must have at least one technology cluster. And this one technology cluster would boost the development of all the nearby area and give a thrust to the high technology industry. The next important is the classification of industry. Now, classification of industry we have been classifying since a series of lectures across. The idea is when we talk about size, we say it's a large scale industry or a small scale industry. Large scale industries are usually big settings. Small scale industries are relatively a smaller setup that's there. Similarly, when we talk about the nature of the process, we say either it's a heavy industry or a light industry. We already talked about the examples of heavy industry as iron and steel, light industry as computer industry or computer manufacturing. Based on the location, we can have an industry close to the raw material or close to the market. Based on the bulkiness or the weight or the volume of the raw material, we can decide this. So, proximity to the market or proximity to the raw material is something that's very important. We understand this in more detail when we'll talk about Weber's triangle in our higher standards. So that's an industrial location, the optimum location to find out where an industry should be located. The next is the classification that we have already done based on industrial processing versus industrial assembly. We have either capital intensive industries which require a lot of capital input or a labor intensive. For example, jute is a classic example of labor intensive industry. We also have national versus transnational. National are those which work within the area. Transnational work across the borders, and the most important is flexible versus Fordist. Now, what is the difference between the two? When I say flexible, that means there is a specialized product with high technology which is subject to change, and that's what is a flexible industry. However, if I say Fordist industry, a good example would be automobile industry. So what happens is there is mass production that takes place on a assembly line. So the line of process is demarcated. On this you have, let's say, 20,000 production of cars on a daily basis. So that's a production line that's there. It's a large scale standardized process of making or assembling a product. And that's what is known as the Fordist approach. This is called as Fordist approach because it was the Ford vehicles which were released first, the assembly line of the automobiles that came up first, where you had a mass production on an assembly line. So that's some of the major classifications that we talk about. Now, based on the location, how we can understand which location would be the best location for an industry to come up. In this, we understand various factors. So we classify those as human factors and physical factors. Physical factors, I can simply say the climate of the region, the terrain of the region, whether it's a rugged terrain, it's a hilly terrain, whether it's a plain area where industry can be easily established, the closeness to the raw material, or what we say proximity to the raw material, the location of the site, then the location or the site, then you have the source of energy, whether ample of energy sources are available or not, transportation or natural routes we could say are available or not. So those are the physical factors. When it comes to human factors, the most important is labor. Then you have the capital. We talk about transport. Now the difference between the transport here and here is, here in the physical factor we talk about natural routes. So natural routes means lakes, rivers, waterways that are there. Transport, we say artificial transport development, for example railway lines to be built up. So those ways of transport would go under human effort. Then you have a market that is located close to by, government intervention wherever required, and a quality of life. So those are some of the major factors that are taken into consideration. Now when it comes to location, a location could be decided based on two things. Either I would aim for the highest profit and I'll have my industry there, or my aim would be to reduce my cost to the lowest. So my location would depend on two things. Either it would be least cost, that I don't have to bear a lot of money, or I generate maximum profit. Based on that, I would have my location. Then my scale of production is important. Whether it's a kind of traditional processing that we are trying to do with physical side, with local customers, with labor input that's being required, or it's a kind of innovative industry, innovative approach where my market is international, my market let's say is online, it's a kind of e-commerce platform, or you have to decide whether it's a traditional industry or an innovative industry. Based on that, the scale of production would vary. Based on that, the customers would vary, and therefore industrial location primarily would vary based on the demand that is there into the market. Again, the product being manufactured, the range of product that is being manufactured is very important aspect that you need to understand. Next comes is the industrial agglomeration. Let's say you have industry A that is established at this location. Now because you have this industry here, you had a transport network that was built, you had electricity wires that came up into this region. As a result, when industry B is trying to think where to establish, it would be closer to A. That's because it would enjoy the benefits that have already been created by industry A. So it would get the transport by itself, it would get the electricity by itself, it won't have to work for those issues. Similarly, C would think, okay, there are already two industries. Now if I establish there, what would happen is, might be the raw material that A and B is making would be useful for my industry. So it's better that I establish close to this location. So as a result, what happens is you have numerous industries coming closer to one another, and this is what is known as industrial agglomeration or clustering of many industries close by. Now, whenever we talk about industrial agglomeration, you have external economies that come into play. There are two types of external economies. One is urbanization economy, the other is localization economy. Localization economy talks about the firm being located close to either the supplier who is supplying the product or the one who is taking the supplies. So one either who is manufacturing or who is using. So that's what is the localization economy. However, when I say urbanization economy, it's a kind of cost saving approach which results from an urban location. Because of that location, I would have everything which would be in the proximity and I would save my cost on those issues. So these industrial agglomeration have external economies into play. Those could be in the form of urbanization economies or localization economies. The next important aspect that we understand is the establishment of industrial parks or industrial estates. Industrial estates are a cluster of various industries, or we could say area which is demarcated for industrial development. Now here you can have businesses, offices and lightweight industries rather than a heavyweight industries. This could be either within the core city or in the rural areas. The benefits of an industrial estate being established is you have a concentrated industrialized center, As a result, for any new business to come in, it becomes easy for it to start. You would have that industrial unit which would be demarcated from the residential pockets. So you have the various theories which we would understand under the urban development. How you have the CBD, the central business district, which is demarcated from an industrial area or residential area. So you would have residential area far away from the industrial area, a clear segregation between the two things. So the quality of life would be definitely good for the residential areas as well, and there would be developmental policies that would be undergoing for bringing a kind of regional and economic development in that area. So that's another important aspect. However, over the years, we have seen there has been a changing trend in industrial location. So far, industries were preferred closer to the urban areas. However, now the industries are going far off, and these are known as greenfield rural industries. The greenfield rural industries have a tendency to shift away from the main urban area, and this process has increased over the 20th century. We have seen lots of industries being migrating or moving from the core cities to the suburban areas. Similarly, you have high manufacturing areas and low manufacturing areas which are segregated, and across the world there has been a global shift, or we could say as a part of globalization there has been a shift in manufacturing from developed nations to the developing nations. If we take a specific case example of America, we would understand that the Northeast America, the Northeast part of the America covered 70% of the manufacturing jobs back in 1960s. As of now, it's only 35% of the job. However, it covers nearly 1/8 of the country. Where the jobs have shifted? They have shifted to the sun belt, what we call as, which is the south and the western areas. So this region is known as the sun belt area, and because of this shift, there has been a decline from 70% to 35% in the industrial areas in the Northeast in America. And that's how we understand there has been a changing location of manufacturing with time. The next is a case study of Bangalore from India. Now this has also been called as the garden city or the culture of learning. You have numerous technological institutes coming in, numerous universities that are there. In R&D you have biotechnology, aerospace, IT. So there are three sectors under which Bangalore is predominantly being divided, what we call as Bangalore now. You have electronics, you have technology, and then you have software. Bangalore is considered as the fourth largest technological cluster after Silicon Valley, Boston and London. Again, you have Nasdaq, which is the world's biggest stock exchange, which opened its third center in Bangalore back in 2001. When it comes to technology industries, Texas Instrument was the first company, first foreign investment in high technology sector in India for the first time back in 1980s, and since then we say Bangalore has developed as the Silicon Valley of India. Similarly, now you have Cyberabad close to Hyderabad, which is developing on the IT lines or the high technology industries, we could say. These centers were home to numerous multinational companies, but slowly and gradually, along with the core skills, they started the jobs of outsourcing. Now, why outsourcing became one of the major focus of industries across the world, and India became a center for it. First of all, in India, you have cheap labor. So, cheap labor was one of the major ideas for the companies to have their outsourcing units in India. The second was English speaking population, which is predominantly 80%, not so much, let's say, in the countries like China or any other nation that we talk about. And third was the skilled ICT manpower that was witnessed. So those were some of the reasons that you had outsourcing industries coming up in India. So this was a glimpse of the chapter of industry. Some of the important questions that could be formed from this section are: what are various industrial systems? what is a high technology industry, differentiate a industrial processing versus an industrial assembly unit. How do you understand or classify the industries? What are the various human and physical factors associated to the location of the industry? So those were some of the key highlights, and then definitely you would have the case studies, the examples that would be coming up for your examination. We'll be bringing up many more chapters for you, so stay tuned. Have a wonderful day ahead.